I grew up watching magic happen in a tiny kitchen. It wasn't anything fancy, just a small space in our little apartment, but my grandmother turned it into something special. Every morning, the smell of fresh bread and warm pastries filled the air and drifted down the hallway. Our neighbors would come knocking, drawn in by the sweet, comforting scent. My grandmother's hands were wrinkled and worn, but they moved with confidence and love. She made everything by hand, no shortcuts. Even the simplest things like dough and sugar became something joyful in her care. "Remember this, Emma," she would tell me as she kneaded dough. "Good food isn't just about how it tastes, it's about the memories you make with it." Those words stayed with me. Long after she passed away, when I was just 16, I still heard her voice in my head. She left me her recipe book, filled with handwritten notes and old family secrets. That book became my treasure, and I already knew then, I wanted to be a baker. 10 years later, I had gone to culinary school and worked in many different bakeries. I took extra shifts, saved every dollar, and slowly built up what I called my dream fund. It was hard, my feet often ached, my hands were covered in burns and cuts, but I never gave up. I was working for something bigger. That's when James walked into my life. It was raining that Tuesday morning, and he stepped into the bakery where I worked, soaked and looking a little lost. His tie was crooked, his hair was wet, but he had this warm smile that made me pause. "Whatever smells that good, I'll take two," he said, shaking the rain off his coat. I had just taken my signature lavender honey croissants out of the oven. "You're lucky," I said, "first one's free." He took a bite and smiled like he'd just discovered something magical. "This is amazing, please tell me you're not married." I laughed, a little surprised by his boldness. "Is that your way of asking me out?" "Only if it's working," he said with a grin. From that day on, we were inseparable. James was different from anyone I'd known. He really listened. When I told him about my dream of opening a bakery, he didn't laugh or call it unrealistic. He asked thoughtful questions. He encouraged me. 6 months later, we were talking about getting married. That's when I met his family, and everything started to change. His mother, Patricia Chin, was everything I wasn't. She was tall, polished, and proud, with expensive clothes, perfect hair, and the confidence of someone who'd always had money and status. She managed Crystal Mall, one of the most upscale shopping centers in the city, and it was clear she thought I didn't belong in her world. At our first dinner together, she sipped her wine and looked me over. "So, you're a baker?" "Yes," I said, trying to stay calm. "I've been saving up to open my own bakery." She gave a short, sharp laugh. "Do you know how many small businesses fail in their first year? James, maybe you can help her find something more realistic." James held my hand under the table and tried to speak up for me, but Patricia wasn't done. "Wouldn't you rather have a wife who fits into our world, someone who can go to charity events, help with business meetings?" Her words hit hard. I didn't say anything back, but I felt like I'd been slapped. Later, James's father, Robert, changed the subject, something he did a lot. I'd come to learn. Still, James and I got married 6 months later. It wasn't the huge wedding Patricia wanted, and she made her disappointment clear, but I didn't care. I was building something of my own. One day, I met a man named Marcus Sterling at a seminar. He was a big name in real estate and development. When I shared my bakery business plan, he was impressed, not just with the food ideas, but with my vision for creating a warm, inviting space that brought people together. Marcus offered to invest. It was more than I could have dreamed, enough money to open not just a bakery, but a full cafe with a modern design and room to expand. Here's the twist: what James and Patricia didn't know was that Marcus owned Crystal Mall. When I applied to open Sweet Heritage there, Patricia rejected my application without a second thought. "A bakery? In this mall?" she scoffed. "We don't need another coffee shop." But Marcus had already approved it. Her opinion didn't matter. Construction began 2 weeks later, right in the center of Crystal Mall. Patricia was furious when she found out, but there was nothing she could do to stop it. The night before the grand opening, she came by with a smug look. "When this fails," she said coldly, "don't expect James to fix it for you." I smiled politely. "Thank you for your concern, Patricia. Would you like a coffee? We're testing the machines." She didn't stay long. The next morning, Sweet Heritage opened its doors. The pastries were fresh, the lights were warm, and every detail had been carefully thought out. We sold out by noon. The reviews came pouring in, praising our recipes, the design, the atmosphere. Patricia didn't say a word, but I knew she'd seen the success. I wasn't just trying to prove her wrong, I was proving myself right. And as I stood there in the middle of my dream, the bakery I had built from nothing, I felt something bigger than pride. I felt like I was finally honoring my grandmother's legacy. With her recipe book tucked in my apron and the smell of morning buns in the air, I knew this was just the beginning. I stood there, feeling my heart pounding in my chest, but I kept my voice calm. I think all this tension, I said, comes from your constant interference. Patricia's eyes flashed with anger. How dare you, she snapped. I've only ever thought of my son's happiness. But James finally spoke up. His voice was sharp and clear. No, Mom, you've been thinking of yourself. Emma has built something amazing. Why can't you just support her? Patricia blinked quickly, her eyes filling with tears, perfectly timed, like always. I see, she said, her voice trembling. She's turned you against me. What kind of woman drives a wedge between a mother and her son? Then, suddenly, we heard another voice. The kind of woman who's transforming your entire mall, Marcus said, walking toward us. His tone was firm. Patricia, my office, now. We watched them leave together. James shook his head. I'm so sorry, Emma, he said. I didn't realize how terrible she was being. It's not your fault, I said quietly, but deep down, I wished he had seen it sooner. Before I could say more, Sarah rushed over, her face glowing. Emma, the food critics' review is up, it's live. We pulled it up together. The review was everything we'd hoped for, beautiful words about our pastries, the welcoming feel of our cafe, and our attention to detail. That night, the bakery was packed, people were lining up, some were even famous food bloggers. But Patricia didn't come to the mall for several days. People whispered that she was having long meetings with Marcus. I didn't say anything, I just waited. Finally, on Sunday, she invited the whole family over for dinner. She said she wanted to discuss some changes. The dinner was awkward. Patricia barely touched her food. Robert tried to keep things light, but everyone could feel the tension. Then she cleared her throat and said, "There have been some changes at work." James looked worried. "What's going on?" "Mr. Sterling is restructuring the company," Patricia said. "He's hiring a new property manager to bring in fresh ideas." "What?" James exclaimed. "But you've been in charge of Crystal Mall for years." Patricia's face was tight. "Apparently," she said coldly, "someone convinced him I wasn't the right fit anymore." I looked at her calmly and said, "Someone who saw that the mall could be more." Robert stared at me. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath. Before I opened Sweet Heritage, I met Marcus at a seminar. He liked my ideas, not just for a bakery, but for how to make malls into places where people come for more than shopping. Patricia laughed sharply. "You, a baker, changing the future of retail?" "Yes," I said, and slid a folder across the table. "I've been working with Marcus for over a year. These are our plans." James opened the folder and his eyes widened. "There's so much here, community events, art spaces, even workshops." "Emma, this is incredible." Patricia scoffed. "Marcus would never go along with this." At that moment, Marcus walked in. "I already have," he said. Patricia froze. "Emma owns 51% of Sterling Retail Properties Mall division," Marcus continued, "including Crystal Mall." There was silence. Robert coughed in surprise. Patricia looked like she had been hit by a truck. "That can't be true," she whispered. "It is," Marcus said, "and in just 1 year, Emma's ideas have increased revenue by 40%. Patricia's voice was barely audible. "Are you taking my job?" "No," I said gently, "you're being promoted. You'll oversee operations across all of our new locations, if you're willing to work with me." Patricia looked like she didn't know whether to be angry or relieved. "I may have misjudged you," she finally said. "You definitely did," I replied, "but what matters now is what you'll do next." As we left, James squeezed my hand. "I should have stood up for you sooner." I nodded, smiling. "But we're here now, that's what matters." The next few days brought even more changes. Word about my new role spread through the mall. Some people welcomed me with smiles, others looked nervous. Still, there was something exciting in the air, like we were building something new and full of hope. Patricia took a week off. When she came back, she acted like a new person. She started taking interest in my expansion ideas. At first, I thought she was only doing it to impress Marcus, but over time, she seemed genuinely curious. 3 weeks later, she showed up at Sweet Heritage before sunrise. She looked unsure of herself, something I'd never seen before. "We need to talk," she said. I was in the middle of making pastry dough, so I nodded toward my office. "Give me 5 minutes." She waited quietly. When we finally sat down, she looked around and her eyes landed on my grandmother's old recipe book. "I've been looking over the plans," she began. "You've done your homework. The data is impressive." I just nodded. Then she looked down, playing with her necklace. Finally, she spoke again, this time with real emotion. "I owe you an apology." I stayed quiet. "When James brought you home, I judged you," she said. "I thought you weren't right for him. I thought you didn't belong, but I was wrong. You've built something so meaningful, and you treated me with more grace than I deserved." I crossed my arms. "What changed your mind?" "You did," she said. "Your kindness, your strength, and this bakery, it's more than food, it's a place where people feel connected." She glanced at the recipe book again. "Your morning buns, they remind me of my grandmother's. I haven't had anything like them since I was a little girl." I stood up and picked up the book. "Want to learn how to make them?" Her eyes filled with tears. "You'd share that with me?" "Family recipes are meant to be shared," I said. "If we're going to make this work, we have to start with trust." That morning, Patricia put on an apron for the first time. Her first buns were messy, but her smile was real. Soon, she started coming in regularly to help with the morning baking. Our relationship slowly grew stronger. She even started teaching her country club friends how to bake croissants at our second location. The business grew quickly, 5 new stores in just 1 year, and Patricia became a key part of the team. One evening, as we were closing, she stayed behind. "I've been thinking," she said, "what if we offer cooking classes, help people create their own family traditions?" I smiled. "I love that idea." Then she hugged me. "Thank you for not giving up on me." On the way home, I thought about how far we had come. Building a business was important, but helping people grow, even the ones who once doubted you, meant something deeper. The next morning, Patricia was already there when I walked in. Her apron was covered in flour. "I was thinking," she said, "we should create a new pastry for your anniversary with James, something special, something that tells your story." "Our story," I corrected gently. She smiled. "Yes, all of it." And as we worked side by side, the smell of fresh dough and warm sugar filled the kitchen. It wasn't just the beginning of a new recipe. It was the beginning of something even sweeter: healing, family, and a future built together.